I just want to say, even though the when I go out in the woods, the adrenaline part isn't as much as it used to be, and I don't get the scare factor. I'll tell you what I do get. I'm haunted by just the vision of seeing those eyes. I can picture them in my head every time I close my eyes. I can see those eyes and how big they were, how far apart they were. And I don't have one, I don't have two, I don't have three, I have 4 instances where I've seen those eyes. One of them on video, the other 3 live. And in all 3 instances, I'll never forget. It's just something I'll never forget. It's short of seeing a face in the sunlight. I don't think it can get any better than that. I'll never forget those eyes.
Those eyes. Human voices can carry such incredible sincerity. Greetings, temporal humans. This is Boudreaux, the cybernetic ghost from the future. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 10 of the Trailer Trash Terrors podcast. This episode is titled, Those Eyes Still Haunt Me. I have no idea how, but Vic Hermanson has actually completed a 10-show season of a mostly cohesive, and occasionally entertaining podcast. Humans do, occasionally, amaze me. So I am very happy to inform you that the season finale show will once again feature AJ, the Sasquatch scholar. Now, let's enjoy AJ's wisdom, knowledge, and experience.
Trailer Trash Terrors.
Hello everyone, Vic Hermanson here. This is Season 1, Episode 10 of Trailer Trash Terrors. I'm considering this the season finale. I'm going to have a bonus show that covers things like my thoughts on podcasting, what I've learned, what I believe makes a good podcast, what I believe makes a bad podcast. What's the podcaster's duty to the audience? What if after all the work of building a podcast you're just talking to empty air? How long do you fight that fight? I don't know, but there's going to be that bonus episode. I hope you'll listen. I think you might find it interesting. I first met AJ about a month ago, and since then I've had the privilege of having several good hours of conversation with him. AJ's an interesting fellow. He is someone who has approached the whole Bigfoot phenomenon in a very, very scholarly fashion. He cares about what he's learning, and he's incorporated his own experiences into that. He sent me some video and a few audio files recently. Because of the equipment and software I have, I was able to help him enhance those files a bit. One of them is what he's talking about in the intro, those eyes. Or at least it's one instance of those eyes. And I'm pretty sure the video was taken with a phone. It's taken in deep darkness. You can hear some rustling, but mainly what you see is glowing eyes. And they move from somewhere around 7 feet to somewhere around 2 feet pretty rapidly. They go in frame, they come out of frame. Sometimes you can see tufts of what look to be fur, even maybe a nose. I haven't seen anything like that in Pennsylvania. I've seen owls, I've seen woodpeckers, I've seen beavers, I've seen raccoons, I've seen groundhogs, I've seen coyotes. There's just simply nothing in Pennsylvania that can move that way. And I remember looking at it and thinking, wow, AJ's really caught something important here. Anyway, I was able to make it a little bit better. I sent it to him. And I'm hoping that he's able to generate some interest by showing it to other people. Tonight's show is AJ's return. AJ is telling us more of the history of the reporting of Bigfoot. He's telling us more about things he's experienced. And I find him a fascinating individual. I can tell with utter certainty how sincere he is, how important this is to him, and how truthful he is. So, for the next hour and a half, I hope you will relax, open your mind, open your ears, and listen to the tales of AJ. Thanks so much. Oh, just to let you know, there's a little difference in the quality of the audio that you're hearing right now and the quality of the audio of AJ's interview. We've just had a little trouble getting a good broadband connection between us. So what you're hearing is my voice recorded into an NT1A microphone, a good microphone, and you're hearing AJ's voice coming through the speakers of my phone placed next to that microphone. Not the world's most perfect interview technique, but it worked pretty well. Anyway, let's get to AJ. That's the important part of the show. Hello everyone, out in Trailer Trash Terror Land. This is Vic Hermanson. I'm lucky, very lucky this week, in that we have the return of AJ Grabowski, I believe. Is that how you say your name?
Yes, yeah, pretty as close as you can get. Grabowski.
Grabowski,
yes.
Okay. Good enough. Anyway, AJ Grabowski, I refer to as the Sasquatch Scholar. He has been kind enough to agree to talk with me again, and I'm going to do my very, very best to be a better interviewer and to step on him less. So I'm going to let AJ just take it away and take us any direction that he feels he wishes, because that is a scholar's prerogative.
Okay. Well, like I said, my name's AJ Grabowski. I've been doing this for quite a while, and not just in the Bigfoot field, but research in general has been a part of my life since I was a young child, elementary school age. But with that being said, we wanted to find out some information on some of the historic Sasquatch encounters, mainly Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett. There's a few, just to name a few. But to understand the whole Daniel Boone story, you have to understand the state of Kentucky. Now, the state of Kentucky is, the word Kentucky is of native origins, and it can be attributed to several different language groups, including the Iroquois, which was Can-Ta-Ten, which meaning meadow, prairie, or land of tomorrow. The Algonquian term, Kintakitu, the mispronunciations will be there, I apologize. Kin-Atikiki, meaning river bottom. Shawnee, meaning head of the river. In 1775, a Cherokee leader by the name of Dragging Canoe, he called it the bloody ground, and a dark cloud hung over this land. And there is another tribe, unbeknownst to me at the time. It's in my research in the past. It's a small tribe. It's not a well-known tribe. But this tribe, the way they described Kentucky, it was Kentucky. And that, in their language, would have translated into basically bloody ground or place where the blood flows. That tribe, I do apologize, is unbeknownst to me. I do know there was tribes in that area that went into that area from the north and from the south, did their hunting, did their fishing, and left because the natives to that area knew that land was tainted in some way, or there was something there that could have been holding them back from living there. But they would not live there. No tribes were living there at the time, which was odd. They frequented the area, but they did not live there. So I'm going to go on ahead with Daniel Boone encounter. Now, Daniel Boone, obviously, he basically started the route to the west, and he basically blazed the trail, which became later known as Wilderness Run or Wilderness Road. That helped to establish Kentucky's earliest settlement. That was Boonesboro, Kentucky. Now, Daniel Boone wanted to name Kentucky Transylvania. That was supposed to be the capital. That never happened. But in this alleged time, there's a story, and I could not dig up much information more than a few sentences and lines, and the rest was all hearsay and theories, and I'm not going to use that because that's not scientific. But the one consistency was that he allegedly killed a 10-foot hairy giant that he called a Yahoo, or I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's Yeahoh. Yeho? I'm not sure. But that was the story about that. It's not as in-depth as I thought. Now, Davy Crockett's story, it gets a little on the weird side, but it is interesting nonetheless. And by the way, the Daniel Boone, this in Boonesboro, when he allegedly killed this 10-foot hairy giant, this was in the 1770s, around there. But on to Davy Crockett. Now, he was a native of Tennessee, and he died, as a lot of people know, defending the Alamo. His encounter, it was in 1835 near Nacogdoches, Texas. This was the year before the battle for the Alamo. So Crockett purportedly took a seat upon a log, and as he ate his food, he claimed an enormous bipedal beast that was the shape and shade of a large ape man appeared before him. Now that's one part of it I got. I was able to dig up a letter that he had written to a brother-in-law named Abner. In this letter, he wrote, whether it was the axe's disturbance, because allegedly he had an axe up against a tree that fell and hit wood, and it made a kind of knocking sound. That's kind of interesting. But upon whether it was the axe's disturbance or possibly the heat of the sun, which caused an apparition to slowly form in front of my eyes, I know not. As a Christian man, I swear to you, Abe, the brother-in-law he's writing to, that what spirit came upon me was the shape and shade of a large ape man, the likes we may expect among more bellicose and hostile tribes and territories. The shade formed into most deformed and ugly countenance. It was a very ugly creature, he says. Now, it was covered in wild hair with needling eyes, so he said, and large broken rows of teeth. I don't know what this measurement is, but it was the height of 3 foundlings. I guess that means like saplings, maybe. I'm not sure. But it was big either way. And he spit upon the ground the bread he was eating when he seen it. And I don't know, it does not say whether it was verbally spoken or telepathically spoken. It does not say. That's where you get into the supernatural phase of this report. I'm not sure, but it then goes on to say the monster addressed a warning to me. And he says, Abner, it told me from Texas to flee, return, abandon the fort and flee. It's a lost cause. When I began to question this, the creature spread upon the wind like the morning stream swirls off a frog pond. I swear to you, Abner, that whatever meat or sausage disagreed with me that afternoon, I swore off all beef and hog for days. So I don't know what to think of that. My perception from a scientific perspective, it didn't appear before him, and it didn't disappear like a fog. It's just a very agile, ninja-like animal. We've heard the stories of how agile this creature could be, or I should say this being. And that's basically a lot of the story of Davy Crockett. There's a lot more that I could have got into, but I don't like to get into something if I don't feel like the source is 100% on the up and up, or for whatever reason I feel like it could be somewhat of a fabrication. But the one thing that I did spend a lot of time on, and I'll be straight up, I'll be 100% honest. I'm gonna give you a lot of information, but I don't know the answer to this question yet, and I don't think I'm going to, nor is science, until we get enough of the DNA evidence of earlier Homo species, so that we can finally pinpoint what that unknown Homo species is in the nuclear DNA that were done in the DNA studies. The mitochondrial DNA, there's no doubt, 100% modern human. So this is essentially, this is as if a Neanderthal was walking amongst us today. It's another form of human, and there's so many different ways that could have happened. Now, when it comes to interbreeding, Neanderthal male and a modern human female could produce fertile offspring. Now, if you reverse that, they would not be fertile for whatever reason. I don't know. Could be because of recessive genes. I'm not sure. But I do know that if that happens, there is no passing of any mitochondrial DNA, which is essential if this is supposed to be 100% modern, or I'm sorry, if this is supposed to be modern human DNA. So I get to the denosovin part of the DNA. Now, what few people know is when it comes to Neanderthal DNA, Europeans, just about everybody in the world has a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. The highest would be, of course, in areas of Europe, but it's in just about everybody. The lowest is in Africa, which makes sense because they left Africa. There's only 0.3% in the African population. But back to, as I was saying, the denosovin DNA came from a cave of the same name, Denosova Cave. And they give dates of 195,000 to 122,700 years before present. The oldest found being 217,000 years old. So this is right in the time frame and right in the correct area where if something was evolving and mating and there was intermingling going on, this would have been the time frame, and shortly thereafter, the ice-free corridor, or however everybody got to the New World, that would have been taken, and they would have been right along with them. But the highest levels of the denosovin DNA is in East Asia, Siberia, Melanesian populations at 4 to 6%. And again, that Neanderthal DNA is very low in anyone of African descent, so like 0.3. But my thinking is that the different species, and there's a list. I would say there was conservatively 8 different species of modern Homo species that existed at once on the planet. They had their own niches. They had different environments, like, for instance, the Hobbit man, Homo florensis, 3 maybe a meter tall, but it was an anatomically correct modern human, except it was very small. And that's the thing that islands do to different animals. They were hunting pygmy elephants while they were getting chased by dog-sized rats and lizards the size of Komodo dragons. So they had a lot to deal with. But that's one species that would have existed in the same time frame that we were in our early days. Now, it starts at Homo erectus. Homo erectus would gave rise to the following: Homo habilis, Homo rudolfensis, Homo georgica, Homo ergaster. This is a big unknown in the DNA community, but it's the red deer cave people. It was DNA and bone that was found in a cave in China. They don't know much more than that about it. Then there is Homo luzonensis and, of course, Homo florenziensis. Now, I pinpointed where all of these lived and where they were, and it would only make sense that my honest opinion is it wasn't as simple as a modern human had relations with a Neanderthal, a modern human woman had relations with a Denisovan. I don't believe that's as simple as that. I believe it is something along the lines of, well, let's just say, for instance, Homo habilis and Homo rudolfensis came across each other, made it, had viable offspring that could reproduce. What if that was our unknown primate? And I'm not saying that particular mix, but there's so many that could have reproduced with each other. Now, to my understanding, as far as I can see, it has to be a Homo species in order to be able to properly, procreate, to make offspring, and that's the law. It's pretty simple. That's what I look at it. The one thing that jumped out at me, but it doesn't add up because of the location, was there's another Homo species and it's very close to right before our species became what it is today, but Homo rhodensiensis. And this Homo species is of an unknown origin. It has no relation to any of the other Homo species that I just mentioned, and it has its own little branch. That right there jumped out to me like a red flag. But the only thing that throws it off is its habitat was Central Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. So it's a head scratcher. I'm not going to lie. There's so many things that could have happened. Now, the big three, as I would call them, would be your Homo sapien, Homo neanderthalensis, and the Homo denisova. They all, I think, they were the leaders of the pack on planet Earth. And in that order, Homo sapien, Neanderthal, Denisova. I believe it was in that exact order. And another theory, it could be maybe Neanderthal and Denisova had viable offspring that can reproduce. That's a possibility too, and that would put them in the right area because said East Asia, Siberia, 4 to 6% Denisova DNA. That would put them right where they need to be to cross that land bridge and mate with a modern human female. So I think that again, it's all theory. Nobody can prove any of this until we get the evidence we need. But I think that's a pretty good approach to how to look at what this actually is.
That is a pretty complete overview. Can I go back and ask you a couple of questions about some of the things you discussed here?
Of course.
I came from Kentucky, and I remember the teachers just telling us that Kentucky came from an Indian word, but I think they used something like keen talk or something like that. But the various tribes you were speaking of, is there a relationship between those languages? Did they sort of evolve one from another?
So okay, like knowing that you have a history, I have a history background, which is advantageous in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there were tribes that had similar language. The linguistics were similar, but they would be able to communicate with each other to an extent, almost like the difference between us speaking to somebody from England. I don't know 2 words they're saying, but they speak the same language as us. You know, that's the way I look at it. It's kind of like that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, that would have facilitated the ability to develop treaties, to have trade, to genetic drift. I mean, the ability for people of one tribe to marry into another.
Yeah.
Which,
in essence, that would be the case.
And that's an important thing when you have small groups of people. You want to avoid, genetic concentration. One of the things that I always found interesting about the Daniel Boone story was that he liked to tell the story, but he didn't like people making fun of him.
No.
And so apparently a number of times he would, be persuaded to tell the story, and there would be somebody in the audience who would start laughing or, pointing fingers at him, and he'd get very angry and leave and would not complete the story.
Yeah.
Which always gave me the feeling like, he felt like he was talking about something serious.
And if these people don't want to hear it, F them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was pretty much his view.
And if I don't like, look, at work, in my everyday life, except for the people that I know, I don't go and say, I do this, I'm into this. I take everybody that I see as a non-believer, because most people are, and they laugh at the idea. But anyone of those non-believers that ever said that to me, that's bullshit, it's this, it's that. I said, you give me 3-4 hours of your time and a half an hour drive, and I will prove you 100% wrong. I promise. And nobody ever would take me up on the offer. So, because I know the area that I was researching heavily at that time, every single time I went, I had some type of interaction of some kind. There was never a day where nothing happened. Always something. That I kind of feel like I grew a relationship with them and then kind of abandoned it. I wonder if they think, where is this guy?
You're wondering if they feel that you've abandoned that relationship with them. What?
Yeah, but my point is, do they think that deeply? Obviously, we already know that apes and even lower animals can have just unbelievable attention and affections towards their children and family.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, like I feel like there's a possibility like they're curious and they want to know, where is he, or what is he, what's his, because they have to have an idea of what we are, and they know we're dangerous, or else they wouldn't be hiding from us. So,
well, if they've been around for long enough, they would notice that any other Homo species that deals a lot with Homo sapiens pretty soon is made extinct.
Yeah.
Homo sapiens are very, very good at that. One of the things you were talking about was Davy Crockett talking about the creature dispersing on the wind. More or less.
The exact thing that he said was that when it disappeared, he said, what was the exact words? Okay, he said, and that spirit, what came upon me was the shape and shade of a large ape man. No, that's not the part. Okay, anyways, I can't find the part where it's at. But yeah, he basically like a mist on a pond is what he said.
Right.
I think it was just something that moved that fast
Mm-hmm.
that he just, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. Maybe it's a tall tale. Maybe, you know how stories get embellished through the years. Maybe it was a simple Bigfoot encounter that they turned paranormal. You know what I mean? That. There's a million things. We'll never know.
Well, occasionally you'll run into, and there's one of the big fights in the Bigfoot community, and you've probably run into it, is the fight between physical creature and what they call woo, the supernatural aspect of this. I've always thought there's a middle ground in that.
Why can't there be a touch of both?
Certainly. There could certainly be a touch of both, and there could also be just the fact that they've evolved such incredible abilities to hide and to be elusive that we perceive what we see as something supernatural.
Do you recall on our last interview when I told you about the fact that I feel like Bigfoot can feel our intentions?
Yes, I do.
And read our emotions. My theory, this is, again, it's all theoretical. There's nothing to back this up. My theory is that because of the natural lifestyle they live, because of they're not getting the things that are put into our bodies as humans that actually made our pineal gland. I'm not sure if you're aware of the purpose of it, but the pineal gland is inactive in the human brain. Doesn't do anything. My theory is that they have a highly active pineal gland, and that is how they're able to do a lot of the things that we perceive as supernatural.
Can you go further with that?
Okay, so basically, the pineal gland is what's called in the seven chakras. It's what's called the third eye. It's allegedly it's directly between both your eyes at a spot right above your, where your eyes are. So basically, in between your eyes, right there, that's where the third eye supposedly is, the pineal gland. It's supposed to have had supernatural abilities or give people abilities to do things that they otherwise couldn't. And I hate to turn this into a history thing, but if you go back to ancient Mesopotamia, and I'm sure you've seen the figure if you know anything about history, you see a man-like animal dressed in garb with a beard, but a burnt beak, and it's holding two things, a bag and an acorn. The acorn, or I'm sorry, not an acorn, but a pine cone. The pine cone has always been used to represent the pineal gland because the pineal gland looks like a pine cone. But he's holding a pine cone and this bag. The bag contains what's called ayahuasca, dimethyltryptamine, DMT. It was something shamans used to have basically spirit journeys and such. But my point is the pineal gland had abilities, gave us abilities, and I believe to this day that's the reason why our pineal glands are calcified is because of the foods we eat. It could be in the waters we drink. It could be in anything. But whatever the case, 999 out of 100 people don't have any action in their pineal gland. People that do will experience supernatural events. They'll sense and feel things that other people won't. And there's even the potential, if it was brought to a high enough level, of telekinesis, of the moving of objects. So yeah, it gets pretty deep, but that's a whole nother level, whole nother debate.
Have you been able to speak to people who seem to have an active pineal gland?
Have I been able to speak to people that see that I do? Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I actually spoke to an investigator because I was having problems and I didn't know why. I was habitually getting harassed by something supernatural. Every time I'd fall asleep, I'd get touched. Every time, it was driving me nuts. I was losing sleep over it. I wasn't scared in any way, shape, or form. There was never any fear. But anyway, so I forwarded this to an investigator who I spoke to 2 mediums separately who knew nothing about my case. They watched a video I had of these so-called, whatever they were, beings, orbs, ghosts, I don't know, that were messing with me. Both mediums said the exact same thing, that either a portal is nearby or the person taking the video accessed some type of a portal or magnet.
Okay.
So, with that being said, all this didn't start happening intensely until I got into hypnotherapy and meditation. After that, that's when things happened, and that's why your third eye would open. That's why, because you're aware of what the 7 chakras are and what they do.
Well, I'm not intimately familiar with that. I'm aware of the idea, and
Okay.
That's it. I'm aware of the idea. It's not something that I've studied deeply. I do know people who spend a great deal of their life concerned about this sort of thing.
Well, I will tell you that I do believe there's a connection. I do believe between us, between them and the pineal gland. I think they may have maybe more active. Maybe it's evolved. I don't know. But what my point is that could explain some of the woo factor that people claim. Other than that, have you heard of, I can't pronounce it, it's a German word, the Heiglenschiene effect, or Hilgenschein?
Actually, I've never heard of this at all.
Okay. Basically what it entails is, and I'll send you the link to the video, of a good knowledgeable guy that I know, but he's kind of a recluse, doesn't talk to a lot of people, but he got, if I can pick his brain, he has cabinets upon cabinets full of manila folders. He has recordings from before a digital camera even existed, up until today. Like he's hardcore. But anyways, so what I was getting at, I lost my train of thought with that. So this man has this video, and it speaks about the Heiglenschiene effect. Basically what it does is it shows how a Sasquatch hair would take in whatever light it's given and blend in almost like a chameleon with whatever it's surrounded by. Do you understand what I mean? So
Absolutely, I understand what you mean.
And the guy shows it in full effect. He shows it. Here's your hair, looks normal. Let's put it in sunlight. Give it some time, and then next thing you know, you can pretty much see through it. You see it, but I understand the stories about people saying that it just disappeared, or that could be a scientific answer for that.
Well, certainly if you were walking in a complex visual environment like the woods, and their hair was able to do that, they could easily blend in to whatever was around them or behind them.
Yeah. I feel like, it's definitely a thing, but I just think they're just that good at hiding. I think they're that smart, they're that agile, and they know their terrain. They know their terrain. Like, I wake up in the morning and go to work every day, and I gotta go and do this, and I have to go and do that. I know what I gotta get up and do. They know what they gotta do. They know the ins and outs of everything. They know where their food is. They know when it's gonna be there. And that's why I said I don't believe they migrate. I believe they just follow different trends during different times of the year. And it was around July or August when I had an eyeshine encounter from my front porch. I'm hoping same thing happens same time of year or sooner, but fingers crossed. I'm trying. They broke my trail cam. Something picked it up and slammed it into the ground to the point where it doesn't work anymore. So
when did that happen?
that happened weeks and weeks, probably about a month or so ago.
Okay.
I knew what happened. I didn't realize it was broken. So I tried to use it again and again. It won't take a picture. So yeah, they broke that on me. But they were nice enough to return the recording, the digital recorder. So what gives? You know, do they really not want to be seen? Are they that camera shy? Yeah, they are.
Well, I've heard one researcher say if you really want them to not be on your property, the best thing to do is to get a bunch of trail cameras.
That's, you know what, that's very good. From my experience, I have to say 100% he's right. Because I've had no luck. I've caught every fox, you know, this, that, nothing even close to a. Now, I had something pick up the camera, move it around, never show anything, and put it back down, right in the same position. Then the next frame is boom, right into the ground. It got planted. That was the last pictures it took.
So that indicates pretty much something with hands.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's no doubt.
Or tentacles.
And yeah, whatever they are, it was able to pick it up, able to look at it, but smart enough not to turn it to get, because they see that infrared. That's the thing. They, just like all the other animals. Every other time I got an animal, right when the picture's being taken, as soon as it starts, you would see them look right at it, right at the camera. They knew it or heard it, whatever the case. So if not them, why not this? And that's the way I look at it. But yeah, they destroyed it. I got to get a new one. I'm thinking about going the route of just waiting and getting some night vision. That's got to be a better route. I don't know. I don't know if night vision or FLIR is better. I don't know what. I got to figure that out.
Well, I haven't used night vision for years, and I know it's much more advanced than it used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, it was essentially giving you an understanding that, yes, there's something over there, but I can't get any detail. I'm sure it's much better now.
Yeah, but the point of it is if it was, for image, thermal imaging camera where it shows you the heat, I know the body shape of a bear versus otherwise. I would know if a bear was standing up or sitting down. Same with a deer. I would see a deer in the heat. I'd say that's a deer. You would see the skinny little legs. So I think that's a good idea to get is a thermal camera. The thing is, I have to have the right opportunity, and it's tough. It's not easy. You can get out there all you want. It's just all about being in the right place at the right time. It doesn't matter how hard or how much time you put into it. You're not gonna have a sighting just based on sheer persistence and enthusiasm and whatever. Yeah, it's gonna help, but that doesn't mean you're gonna have anything. Because I know people that have been like that had nothing ever happen to them. So,
are most of the sightings that you're aware of, are they just right place, right time kind of things, or are they people who've actually? I mean, what you're saying is that it's very difficult to bring about a sighting on your own.
yeah.
I want to talk to you about a couple things. One, just humans. You had talked about sometimes when you discuss these issues with other people, they will, there's ridicule, there's, somebody laughing at you, a negative response.
Yeah.
What percentage of people that you run into, that you talk to, are able to listen to you respectfully, entertain the ideas that you're putting forth, and not treat you that way?
Well, that's hard to say because I really don't speak to or put out a lot about it, like in my everyday life, like at work, but general, if I find somebody that has an interest, like there was one guy that he was asking me about where I live, and I told him, yeah, it's beautiful, it's one whatever acres, and blah, blah, blah. I said, we get all kinds of wildlife up there. I said, he's like, oh yeah, like what? I said, I got a fox, I got deer, turkey, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, at least those not 7 foot furry. And I looked up and I said, well, and he's like, you're kidding me. Because I guess maybe he's an enthusiast. Mm-hmm. And I told him a little bit about the eye sighting instance, and he was like, oh, no, I can't believe it. So yeah, few people are perceptive. I would have to say 1 out of 10 people are going to be, yeah, absolutely. Maybe three out of the rest of that 10 are going to be like, yeah, there's a good chance, but it doesn't live around here. And then the rest are going to say, yeah, no, you're crazy. Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that would be my experience with this sort of thing. AJ, there's a sound in the background.
Okay, that's right. That better?
Oh, that's much better. Am I making you uncomfortable? Is that a fan or something trying to give you fresh air?
No, it's just my exhaust fan. It's not a problem.
Okay. Well, it's going to be a lot easier to understand your voice. You went through all the various Homo subspecies. Where do you think the tremendous size comes from?
From one of the said subspecies. For instance, Homo rudolfensis was habitually 6 foot plus, I believe. And then there was, I gotta look back on my notes, but there was, well, the denisovans are definitely said to be one of the bigger early human species. The finger bone they found, it was immense size. It probably would have put, I don't know the exact numbers, but it would have put it well over 6 feet, maybe more. I don't know. But here's the hard part is, like, my researching is limited right now to Google and things like that, and then books that I can get my hands on. But there's, I think you'll agree with me, mainstream academia has certain things that they don't want people to know about, so there's a lack of information about it. Okay, like for instance, you're not a history guy, that's okay. Type in Barry Fell and look for some of his books. See if you can get one in a library or get it on Google Books. You can't get it because he's telling people about something that mainstream doesn't agree with. It's a history thing, but
can you say his name again?
It's Barry Fell.
Fell?
Yeah, fell, as in you just fell.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll do that after we get finished talking.
Yeah, you'll find his books on eBay. You'll find his books on Amazon occasionally. But other than that, it's his books are suppressed because they cover diffusionism, basically. I don't want to turn this into a history thing, but they cover diffusionism, which is basically different cultures made it to the Americas long before the Vikings and Columbus and all of them. But it's funny that you mentioned it. My favorite story that I wanted to tell you, it involves the Vikings. Okay, now, I want to get you up to date. Eric the Red was obviously a famous, I'm sure you've heard the name, famous Viking. He was kicked out of Norway for murder, moved to Iceland, and was exiled from Iceland for murder. So he and his young family, along with Leif Erikson, went on to found Greenland. So they started a new colony, basically. So Greenland, not very far from the United States coast. Now, years go by, Leif Erikson is in charge. His dad's passed. The Greenland colony is, I wouldn't say thriving, but it's existing, and it's doing trade with Europe. And it went so far as the Catholic Church wanted Leif Erikson to convert all of the Greenlanders to Christianity. So it was a big deal. Okay, so one day, now there was a western settlement, and there was a southern settlement, and there was an eastern settlement. I believe he set sail from the southern settlement from Greenland, and he ended up on an island in Canada called Baffin Island. It's one of the biggest islands it is the biggest island in Canada. It's very big. You can't miss it. Right next to the Hudson Bay. He didn't like that area. He actually called that area Helluland, which stands for flat rock field or something along those lines. Then he left there. He ended up at what I believe was northern Labrador. He called it Markland, which means wooded land. It was heavily wooded, pine trees, It was typical Canadian wilderness. But here's the only problem is, now he did all this. This is at 986 AD. There was, and this isn't just something that I heard. This is pretty much well known out there in the community. But I don't even need any notes for this. 986 AD, Leif made it to an island. So he said, now I believe this island to be not an island, but just part of Labrador, or potentially went into the St. Lawrence and made it in Quebec, something like that. Anyways, he described a tribe of hairy, wild, humanoid figures that were giants towered over him, and he described them word for word as smelly, swarthy beasts with great black eyes. And he also, that's quote for quote pretty much from the translations, he also stated that they had a rank odor and gave off a deafening shriek. Now, that is in 986 AD. How the hell does a guy like that know that? And now you look at Bigfoot accounts today. Doesn't that blow your mind?
It does. I actually saw, just a few days ago, a YouTube video of some, I don't remember what her specialty was, but it was an academic talking about that particular legend.
Yeah. They were called, there's debate because some people think that this name was for other tribes of Indians. Some people think it was for the Bigfoot that they encountered, which I believe they do. But they were called Skraelings, Skraelings. They were, like he said, smelly, swarthy beasts, meaning ninja-like, fast in their movements. And he said they had great black eyes, and the rank odor and the deafening shriek was icing on the cake for me. When I heard that, I said, that's like every Bigfoot account that
you've ever heard. I can certainly see why it'd be time to go back to Greenland.
Yeah. He went back to Greenland, and they actually went on to Vinland, which everyone says it's Nova Scotia or whatever, where Lance Meadows was. I believe it was on Martha's Vineyard, but that's just me. But anyways, different topic.
Well, the interesting thing, AJ, is that a couple of times you've talked about not wanting to go into the history, but the truth is sometimes that's the only thing you can go into. It's as if there is, all of this knowledge is kind of exists in a state of not quite fully gelled. And it's very difficult to say, well, this matters and this doesn't. So I think the history is as valid a way to approach it as anything.
Yeah. No, one good history that this is the 986 AD Leif Erikson account. I believe that to be the first Sasquatch encounter, or I should say account ever. But in 2100 BC, approximately, approximately, the Epic of Gilgamesh was written,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a character in this Epic of Gilgamesh known as Enkidu. And basically, long story short, Gilgamesh, the hero, ends up fighting the Enkidu. Enkidu loses, and he's forced to live in the wilds, and like for life. It was basically in the pictures that they had shown, it looked like just a hairy wild man. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was 2100 BC. So, where does that come from? Yeah, it's mythology. It could be just nothing. But now the Leif Erikson thing, I do not take that as mythology at all. I do not believe that they had any reason that with the things they accomplished, they had no reason to embellish the things they did. they basically took over the British Isles, almost all of Europe outside of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to be said about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
What would have been the motivation to throw in the hairy monsters, unless they were something they just ran into?
When you mean in the sagas?
Well, no. What you're saying is that Leif Erikson had no reason to throw in something amazing to make his story matter. His story mattered no matter what.
Well, let's think about it from. Let's put ourselves back in 986 AD. If you're Leif Erikson now, I know they wanted this for Greenland. They wanted to recruit people from Europe. Come over to Greenland. It's beautiful. You live there. It's this. It's that. They wanted people there. Now, they went to this wherever they ended up, which I believe was Labrador, maybe Quebec, who knows. But it definitely was mainland North America, and it was heavily wooded forest. But I just don't think I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that there would be any reason to A, hoax this, and B, have the knowledge that wasn't learned until thousands of years later, or 1,000 years later. Nobody knew anything about Bigfoot. There was none of that. There was the woodwose in the Middle Ages.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back, pretty far. That's like 1200s. It goes back, but I don't know. This is different. I don't think that them as Vikings, even though they were very well traveled, I don't think that you notice that at 986 AD, he actually described it as an ape man. You want to know why? Is because he was in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
They knew what apes were. That's the difference. Everybody after that, it was wild hairy man up until a certain point. But that that really was eating at me. Why did he call them that? Then it dawned on me. He was everywhere. They were everywhere. So
and I'm feeling bad this moment because I cannot tell you exactly the name. All I can come up with is somebody, the Navigator, who tells similar stories. Go ahead.
No.
That's probably it. But the story is of him going to Africa and apparently running into gorillas.
Henry the Navigator.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're familiar with that story.
No, but go ahead.
Well, that's all. That's it. I mean, I will send you the old newspaper accounts that I found concerning that. That's
what time frame was this?
I'm thinking BC times.
Okay. Yeah, okay. That it very well could have been Hanno the Navigator. He would have been a Carthaginian, which
Mm-hmm.
means he would have been just west of Egypt. Basically a Phoenician. I don't know if you're familiar. I don't know what your history background is. I don't know if you know history at all.
I'm not a historian. I'm very well read.
Okay.
And have retained knowledge pretty well.
Yeah.
What do you think happened to make this particular topic difficult for mainstream academia to approach as any other topic.
Hello?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, okay. We had a
Don't know
glitch.
what happened. Yeah, my Wi-Fi gets like that sometimes.
Oh, that's okay. I think this is going to work much better. I've got a much better microphone recording you now, and I'm watching the levels as we go. And still, my voice is a little louder than I would like it to be, but it's going to be much better than it was.
Well, you'll be able to edit that.
I'll be able to edit that. So
That's good.
I was able to spend a fair amount of time traveling around Europe, England, and one of the things that I always sought out were these old cathedrals. And especially in England, some in France, even some in Germany, they will all have carvings of wood roses
Yeah.
above some of the doors or above some of the altars. I mean, and some of these are very elaborate.
I believe, I'm not 100%, but I believe that the Wood Welsh mythology goes back to basically a human that was outcasted from the rest of society, lived in the wild, and I think they kind of just put that hair and wildness to it. I don't think it was like that at all. But then again, maybe the Wood Welsh was describing a different creature altogether. I don't know. But there was definitely instances where people were, get out of here, you're gone. That's it. And you go, they went and lived in the wild. That did happen. So it's hard to say, but, and I don't know, do you believe that they're worldwide? Like, I know North America, Australia, China, but do you believe, Europe?
Well, I think there are parts of the world that seem to me more naturally advantageous to them. Kentucky certainly is a place where, you've got massive forests. You've got North Carolina, California, Oregon, much of Africa, much of Siberia, much of Russia. Now, places like England, a lot of their forests have been decimated. They're gone.
Yeah.
So the places where these particular creatures would be seems to be less. However,
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this one. I did some work at Edwards Air Force Base, which is out in the California desert.
Yeah, more.
And I talked to some of the people there at the base. And more than one of them told me, on condition of absolute anonymity and that I didn't ever reveal their name, that they had seen what they called something like the white beast of the desert or something, but it was a Bigfoot-type creature they're describing that's white that lives there in the desert.
That's the second white Bigfoot report I've heard first, like from a person firsthand. Second time, so I'm not surprised at all.
The first would have been the Alabama creature.
No, I'm talking about a white one.
Mm-hmm.
The first would have been a friend of mine. His name is Glenn. I actually needed to speak with you after our podcast about that. But he had an encounter in Arizona, and it was white. It was grayish, basically.
AJ, have you ever thought about? Look, I mean, you've talked to me long enough now, I guess, where you realize I'm going to ask you the questions I want to ask, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. But you've got more connected knowledge in this area than just about anybody I've ever talked to. To where any area of the Bigfoot phenomenon, historical, scientific, genetic, you seem to be able to touch on. Have you ever thought about putting together a book?
Yeah, I was actually in the works of writing a history book and also a book about this. But I just never. It's tough, you know. You work 5 days a week.
Yeah.
But my main issue with that is I can get the words down on paper. I would just have to have it formatted properly. Like, for instance, when I write, I just flow, and
Correct.
I might have a run-on sentence a page long. I don't even know sometimes. You know what I mean? It's just I'm not. You know, I'm not saying I'm a bad writer. I'm just not a good writer in that respect. That might be what that's part of what's holding me back. But I really do want to put my experiences and then touch on a lot of the other historical experiences in a specific area. I do want to write about that. Yeah.
Well, you need an editor. Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Someone who could take your vast store of knowledge and turn it into a set of writings that got the point across easily.
Yeah.
I think it's something you should pursue.
Well, I appreciate that, and like I said, it's been something I've been trying to do. I just haven't got into it 100%. It's hard, you know, with the family and everything.
It is. Well, yes, it's extremely hard to write these things down in the way that you're going to want them to appear in the market.
Well, for me, it's hard because it's okay. So I have my Monday through Friday routine, and everything. Like I told you, if I'm not going to do something unless I'm putting 100% in it, and you know that's how I am at work, and that's how I feel like I have to be with this, and I don't have that ability right now. That's. But if I was to set aside time, you know, whenever, and work on it from there. The knowledge is there. I just gotta get it out. You know, I don't need many references. Geez, I really should, and I appreciate you saying so. I would love to do that, definitely.
Well, I hope that you at least will get use your handheld recorder, and when these thoughts occur to you, just record them. And, you know, at some point in the future, there they are. You could bring them together for something. Find some sort of editor who could put them together. I think people would buy your book.
Yeah, I would hope. That would be my fear, is putting it out and not getting anything, you know. But yeah, it's definitely something that I thought about and started really. I just never had the time to finish it, basically. So.
AJ, have you ever gone into the areas of what apparently are other creatures, other animals, other things that they refer to as, you know, dogmen or werewolves or beast of Bray Road, this kind of thing?
Yes, I have, but I'll be honest. In terms of cryptozoological creatures, I know Bigfoot exists. I've seen. I know that much. I find it hard to believe the Dogman stories, for the simple reason that it all happened because of a newspaper reporter. In fact, I just watched a documentary about it yesterday, and I don't know. But separate from that, there was encounters in Michigan. But I will say, if Dogman does exist in the Great Lakes area, that's it. That's my opinion. But I'm not a firm believer in that. I think it's a misidentified Sasquatch.
Very, very reasonable. Well, let me tell you why I fall on the side of, yes, this creature exists. I worked in ERs, emergency departments, for about 12 years of my life. Big trauma centers, mostly in Houston, Texas. And you see people there at their very, very worst. You see the worst day of the worst hour of the worst day of their life when they show up in the ED like that. And people, when they are in these difficult situations, lie, and they lie a lot. And it doesn't take but about a year of dealing with these people to just have an extremely accurate understanding inside your mind of, oh, this person's lying, this person's telling the truth.
Yeah.
And, or at least what they perceive to be the truth. And now having talked to and listened to hundreds of experiencers, people who have seen, heard, encountered Bigfoot, a large percentage of these people are not lying at all. There's not any aspect of their presentation where they're trying to be deceptive. There's a lot of them are struggling to get the words to properly express the encounter.
Yeah.
But they're not lying.
Yeah. I have to agree. There are so many people I've seen in interviews, on TV, documentaries, this and that. Some of them are full of it. Some, but you could see the fear and genuine. I took psychology, and I excelled in psychology, so I know the psychological tells that a person's going to give off if they're lying automatically. You know what I mean? It's just something I learned, and I don't see that in most of these cases.
I don't either. What I see is, I always try to, I don't like inserting myself into these interviews. This is the AJ hour, not the Victor hour. But you could see, especially with domestic abuse victims, both women and men and children who had been beaten, damaged, hurt in their home environment. First off, you could see the fear. And second off, you could see how hard it was for them to tell you exactly what happened. It was trauma. And many of the Bigfoot experiencers that I have listened to, and some that I've talked to, they come from that exact same psychological standpoint of, man, something happened to me that was traumatic, and I don't even know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
You don't seem to be traumatized, and I'm glad about that.
No, I was. I'm not going to get into my life, but I've had much more traumatic experiences than the things I've experienced in the woods. But, but yes, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just with time, when you learn more and you experience more out in the field, it's just something that you're just at peace with. It's there. It can rip you to shreds, or it can run away. Chances are it's going to run away. That's the way I look at it.
Well, the person that I know who's had the most direct encounters, where they're saying they're standing 20 feet away from, the creature they described was being 10, 11 feet tall and very much exhibiting the camouflaging behavior you were talking about, where the fur or the hair made it difficult for you to actually place where they were.
Yeah.
I mean, what they're talking about is, look, I was totally helpless. There was no possible way. If this creature decided it wanted to kill me, I would have been dead in a matter of seconds.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing I could do. And so after the first 15 seconds of realizing, well, I'm still alive, it's probably not going to kill me. It wants me gone. I don't get to stay here and draw pictures or any of that sort of thing. But it didn't really seem interested in killing that person. All right, so what do you think of? I mean, one of the big celebrities in this whole area now is David Paulides, who has become pretty big. It has dozens and dozens of stories of people who have disappeared, and some of them are pretty compelling, especially the ones of kids who were found miles and miles away over mountains.
Yeah, yeah. The one, I don't mean to interrupt you, but one of the stories was, I might be mixing up the numbers, but either way, it's ridiculous. A 2 to 3 year old child with no sneakers was found 19 miles away 12 hours later.
Wow.
And there was a scratch on his feet. And he had to go over mountains, rivers, and barbed wire fence. Now, that's nothing natural.
No.
That's doing that and leaving them there. And that's just one of them. That's why I said Dave Paulides does not come right out and say, this is Bigfoot doing this. And you know what? Some of them, maybe it's not. Maybe
Right.
there's something else out there that we don't understand. Like the Mount Shasta thing, I seen a lot about David Paulides. That's a little different. But anyways, I'd say most of his cases are Bigfoot related. And it's a government hush-hush because they don't want the people to be scared to go to their parks. That's it. Like, I have 3 camping trips coming up this week. Would we be going if no, probably not. So,
Well, there would still be some people who went out there. All right, let me ask you a question. I live in Philadelphia, not in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania. If I, at some point in the future, could get myself to where you are, would you be willing to take me to these places you were talking about?
without a doubt, absolutely. As long as you don't disrespect it and bring others and
No, it would just be me. As far as I have, from everything I've read, you might as well just not even try to take a camera. It would just be my wanting to see what you can show me.
Yeah. It's been. I used to research that area heavily, but since I moved, I'm a lot further from it now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm in the middle of an even better area. So, but like I was saying before, I felt like I had a connection with that group because I know it was the same group I was encountering. There's no doubt. The one that growled at me, and that wasn't menacing. If I would have heard that, I wouldn't have been scared because it wasn't aggressive. There was no aggression whatsoever.
Do you think the communication was just, "Hey, I'm here"?
I don't know what it was trying to communicate, but I don't know. I don't think it was aggressive, but yeah, it might have been just like, back up, big dogs here. So I don't know.
Or my kids are here. I really don't want you around them.
Yeah.
Which I can fully understand. Well, AJ, where else would you like to go? Are there other things you'd like to talk about?
Well, like I said, I'm history. I have a history background, so I can talk till I'm blue in the face about history. But the same thing with this subject, I have a lot of knowledge about it, so I can talk about it. If any questions you have, I'm sure I can help to answer them. Hopefully.
Well, the questions that I have are very much have to do with just simply what are we dealing with here? And
well, that's the hard part.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, and I think we're dealing with. Let's put it this way. Let's pretend for a second like we had a time machine,
mm-hmm.
and we were able to go back and get whatever species this is. We're dealing with basically something along those lines that was living contemporary at the same time as modern humans, but it made it with something that ended up becoming that unknown primate DNA that's found in all nuclear DNA of all the Bigfoot. hairs and fecal matter and everything that they've done analysis on all of it. So none of it's going to change. I 100% agree with her analysis. The only thing there was ever an issue with was nobody wanted to publish it because of the stigma that goes along with it, and that's not right. But
you're discussing Melba Ketchum?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not aware of anybody else who's approached the DNA question just like she has.
Yeah, I think she took the right approach, but I think she might have to broaden her direction, if that makes any sense. Yeah, there's human there, but that doesn't mean this isn't just a human. This is something more, because there's no human in the world that can tear another human limb from limb. This thing could. This thing can do things that we are 100% incapable of. It's physically, it's ridiculous. It's it's like a juiced up model of Neanderthal. Yeah, Neanderthal was like at the tallest 5'2", 5'3", but they were probably 250, 300 pounds. They were massively built. They were built like tanks. They were big, robust creatures, and that goes for a lot of the pre-humans. A lot of people don't realize this. They weren't all, the same, and it doesn't go. Just like I always tell everybody about history. History, they think, is linear. It goes in a straight line. It's roller coasters. It's ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the same case. It's not linear. It's not. There's differences and variances. It's hard to explain and put into words, but I have a feeling you understand what I'm getting at.
I understand what you're getting at. It's just it takes a long time to put together the story of history, and there are dozens of competing interpretations as to what a particular thing means.
Yeah.
Well, AJ, I'm much more pleased with the way that this particular interview has turned out. I don't feel like I was stepping on you.
No, you weren't at all the last time either. Not at all.
It's difficult to interview somebody properly. It's not an easy thing to do.
And I just want to say, even though the when I go out in the woods, the adrenaline part isn't as much as it used to be, and I don't get the scare factor. I'll tell you what I do get. I'm haunted by just the vision of seeing those eyes. I can picture them in my head every time I close my eyes. I can see those eyes and how big they were, how far apart they were. And I don't have one, I don't have two, I don't have three, I have 4 instances where I've seen those eyes. One of them on video, the other 3 live. And in all 3 instances, I'll never forget. It's just something I'll never forget. It's short of seeing a face in the sunlight. I don't think it can get any better than that. I'll never forget those eyes.
Well, that had a deep impact on your soul when you saw this eye shine of this creature with eyes that are 6-7 inches apart.
That basically told me I'm not doing this for nothing. I'm not one of those whack jobs. This is there. This exists. When I spoke to Pennsylvania Department of Natural Resources or whatever, the parks people,
mm-hmm.
I talked to one of the guys, and I told him, I said, Bigfoot researcher, and there's a lot of activity up here, and he laughed. They're not up here. I'm up here all the time. He said, yeah, you're not up here at 2, 3 in the morning, are you? No. Well, come on up at 2, 3 in the morning and then talk to me.
Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
It has to do with being just right up at the northern limits of the Smoky Mountains at Fontana Lake, which this huge lake that's a man-made lake up there, and my sons and I had gone canoeing, and we'd canoed down to the dam and seen the museum, and then we were canoeing back to our campsite. And what we didn't realize was that there were not one or two, but dozens of little inlet coves along the part of the lake that we were coming back to, and we just got lost. We were totally lost. We had no idea which of these inlet coves we needed to go to. So we ended up going almost 2 miles past where we were camping. It takes a while to canoe 2 miles. and we finally realized we just had no idea where we were. So we had one cell phone that was still working. We ended up calling 911, and they sent park rangers out in a boat to find us. And this was 2, 3 in the morning. We were sitting in our canoe just next to the shore, and thought perhaps we would be there all night long. But anyway, they showed up, and as we were coming back, my older son, who also is pretty interested in this sort of stuff, was asking the ranger, "Hey, look, have you ever seen something that you would call a Bigfoot? Have you ever run into that?" And of course, he did the same thing. He said, "No, I've never seen anything like that." And then as we got back to the camp, one of the deputies came over and said, "Well, you didn't ask me." And he said, "Maybe the boss hasn't seen one, but I've seen a lot of them." And he was wanting very much to make sure that his name was not going to be associated with anything. And I feel bad that I was not in a situation where I could sit there and interview him for a long time because, man, we were exhausted. We we had been on that lake for hours and hours and had no food, and because we weren't expecting to be gone but a couple of hours. But anyway, I have always thought that at some point I would like to go back and interview that particular deputy. But
yeah, that'd be cool.
AJ, is there anything else we should talk about?
Well, I think that about covers everything for this time.
Okay.
I hope there's a next time.
Well, I hope so too. And I'm going to leave that to you. When you find things that you find interesting, that you'd like to talk about, that you'd like to incorporate into this body of knowledge, and you'd like some way for that to get out to the world, let me know. And I'll be more than happy to do that for you. That's
what we'll do then.
Okay. And I'm assuming you'll give me the information that I'll need concerning the event in October.
Yeah, I'll be in touch with you well before that.
Okay, you will not be out. This is not going to come out on Tuesday. I've already got a podcast pretty much in the can for Tuesday, but you'll be next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And listen, AJ, as always, look, it's a real pleasure talking to you. I really enjoy your view on this. There's just something, very quiet and very sincere and very knowledgeable about how you approach this. And I respect that. So, anyway, you have a great rest of the day, and you have a really good holiday, okay?
Yeah, you too.
All right, talk to you later, AJ. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
When someone like AJ gives you their time, and a great amount of their time, and their effort, and as you can listen to him, his inner soul, that's a real privilege. It's something that I'm very grateful for. I'm going to consider this the end of episode 10 of Trailer Trash Terrors, Season 1. Therefore, officially, this is the end of Season 1. There's going to be a bonus episode, probably released tomorrow, that covers what I've learned, covers my thoughts about podcasting, covers some funny, interesting stories, covers plans for the show in the future, covers just anything that I think didn't get properly said during Season 1. There are some triumphs. There are some failures. I guess maybe I owe a few apologies. But it's been fun, and there definitely will be a Season 2. So as always, thank you, AJ. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Anchor. Thank you, the Internet. thank you, God, for giving me a mind that allows me to do this kind of thing. It is something that I am very grateful for. Have a happy rest of the week, and I will talk to you next season. Trailer Trash Terrors is written and produced by me, Vic Hermanson. All clips are either public domain or used under the protection of fair use. The music you heard was provided by Loco Lobo and Smart Sound. Please, if you can, give our show a rating and review wherever you happen to listen to your podcasts. I would love to hear any thoughts or stories you might have. So if you wish, please contact me at trailertrashterrors@gmail.com. Very simple, trailertrashterrors@gmail.com.